Well, happy to be here. So my name is Brooke McKim. I'm the CTO and co-founder of a FinOps platform called Vantage. And Youssef, do you want to intro yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Youssef Ibrahim. I lead infrastructure cost efficiency at Block. And fun fact, JR mentioned that there were 26 charter members of the FinOps Foundation in 2019. I was one of them. So it's good to be in my first FinOps X. Awesome. I didn't expect applause for that, but thank you. Okay, so what is Block? You may have heard of Square, you may have heard of Cash App. Block is a company of building blocks, from your favorite local neighborhood seller, P2P transactions, maybe you're streaming a bunch of jam sessions on Tidal, taking advantage of buy now, pay later. That is what Block is composed of. And the infrastructure cost efficiency team at Block sits within engineering operations in the engineering organization. And our team of 2 is responsible for cloud and software financial stewardship and governance, which includes but not limited to managing our FinOps practice and spend effectively in support of Block's overall goals. Brooke, how about Vantage?
Yeah. So Vantage is a cloud cost platform built for modern engineering teams. Most native integrations in market with over 20. Just pride ourselves on having very good API coverage across the board and trying to embed ourselves as deeply into engineering workflows as we can. Before we get into the specifics of AI and FinOps and how you can get that going, just want to give a brief overview of some concepts that are going to be through lines in the presentation today. So the first one is MCP. This is fairly recent and has been very buzzy recently, but Anthropic came out with a protocol called Model Context Protocol. And what it essentially is allows LLMs, such as ChatGPT or Claude, to query data in real time to bring context into the questions you're asking. And so in the graphic there, the examples we have are like GitHub, Vantage, Notion. And so an example of something that MCP enables is you could ask the LLM to grab data from a GitHub repository and then create a corresponding page in Notion and kind of do all of the interesting things you can do with LLMs in between.
So how do you interact with an MCP and with LLMs? You can use agentic AI. So Block has developed an agent called codename Goose. It's open source, so any of you can feel free to test it out and try it out. But it allows you to interact with LLMs and MCPs to fetch the proper context and make sure that the user has the right data to be able to solve their business critical problems. So if your ChatGPT is the brain, you can think of your agent as the arms and legs, or in Goose's case, wings of your solution. The superpower with MCPs and LLMs, it allows you to interact with your data. You can think of the MCPs as a USB-C port. It allows you to interact with anything that really has an API, such as Vantage, to start answering your questions around FinOps, around utilization, around anything that you may have any sort of interest in. So Block built Goose, released it open source in January, and about 1/3 of our engineers use Goose regularly in their day-to-day routine. So it's something that we're investing very heavily into. So as soon as we started learning about MCPs and started to figure out what the potential was, we reached out to the Vantage team, and we've been working with Vantage for a couple of years to see how we can start to leverage MCPs, AI, and LLMs in our daily workflows to try to maximize cloud cost awareness and efficiency across Block. Brooke's going to walk you through some common use cases for AI in FinOps.
So we're not using AI for AI's sake. I think there's some legitimate problems in the FinOps world that AI can assist with. And the one I'm sure everyone's familiar with is you just have multiple personas trying to access what can be very convoluted or confusing data sets. And so LLMs can maybe do a better job of inferring what that person's trying to do, and where they need to go. If there's recurring tasks or you're getting asked the same questions over and over and over again, you can offload that to the LLM as well. And then if you're just beginning a complex project and you maybe don't even know where to start, such as deprecating a region or removing a specific instance type, you can just ask the LLM a very generic question and it can start to pull together information from different sources.
So let's dive a little bit deeper into the different use cases across different teams and personas. So show of hands, who here has had to explain to a finance or procurement partner what a very convoluted or obscure CUR term is? I know I have. Right? So instead of fielding tens of these requests, dozens of these requests a week and working with folks for 20 minutes, half an hour to try to get the answer, you can start to leverage Goose, LLMs, MCPs, and AI to provide that information to a bunch of different personas. So if I have a finance partner asking me what a very obscure data transfer AZ X in bytes term means, instead of me looking it up on cur.vantage.sh and explaining it to them, I can direct them to Goose, and you'll see that in this GIF that it explains what the actual item description is, where you might see different examples of it, and how to think about either optimizing it or what it actually means. So it's very good to be able to explain to your non-FinOps personas core FinOps concepts. So again, show of hands, who here has had a last minute ask from a CTO or from a director or anyone about a complex answer? Again, I don't think I'm seeing enough hands up. Like, I know we've all dealt with last minute asks. So what's really interesting about MCPs is that MCPs can help you with a lot of undifferentiated heavy lifting. So if you're creating end of month dashboards, if you're creating the same set of reports week over week, month over month, Goose can help you automate that, and MCPs can help you automate that. It can create reports, understand and explain trends, provide answers in minutes compared to hours, and really reduce that toil that you might kind of experience with undifferentiated heavy lifting. And the best part is with Goose, you can actually create recipes, which are a sort of automatable workflow, so you can get the same kind of results every time you kind of run the project or run the prompt. And you can see how we can start to develop the potential and see where AI, MCPs, LLMs, all of this can start to assist with FinOps. At Block currently, we're going through a large project where we are deprecating the secondary region for non-payment workflow critical applications. Because this is a project that has a lot of different moving parts, we have hundreds of applications that we need to assess the reliability tier, we need to assess how much they can actually deprecate. Goose can kind of help us with a shortcut into reporting, into analyzing trends, and understanding how this project is going. So I do also want to caveat here that if you've worked with AI, you know that AI isn't perfect and we're still very early stages. One recommendation here is to validate the answers that you're getting out of AI and MCPs so that you know that you're passing on good data to your engineers, to your audience, to any of the different personas. So now that you've seen some example use cases, I'm gonna hand it over to Brooke to talk about what you need to do to make your FinOps practice AI ready.
Yeah, so we just showed you a bunch of shiny demos and prompts with LLMs, but how do you actually enable those workflows? And it begins at the bottom, with what everyone is in this room should be familiar with, is cost allocation. So having as much data in the platform as possible from as many of providers as possible, having it normalized, and then doing that allocation. So whether you're doing it through tags or just report organization or naming certain reports, that's step one, and kind of step one in everyone's FinOps journey regardless. Next part is having APIs sitting on top of that data. So the LLM needs to be able to programmatically access all of that allocation you just did. And it's not just accessing the cost information, it's also accessing all the context. So which providers are you even using? What tag names do you have? What tag keys do you have? How are your users organized into teams? And then we've mostly talked about read use cases, but you can also enable write use cases. And so at Vantage, we have a query language called VQL, looks very much like SQL, but the LLM can also programmatically generate queries on the fly, create reports, create budgets, things like that. And the last piece is the MCP server. So the MCP server sits on top of those APIs. It has additional information that take the form of prompts about and describe to the LLM what each endpoint does and what that data set corresponds to. And you shouldn't just think about cost data as well. You're also looking at forecasts, budgets, any anomalies or alerts that have been detected. And the last important piece is anything it's surfacing to you in terms of numbers should also be able to link into the source of truth. And so every time we're returning a response from our MCP, we're also giving the end user a link into their report because they may need to do initial analysis or send the link somewhere else, or even prove that the LLM is doing the right thing, which we'll touch on in the next slide. So what we've seen in practice, it's still very early, we're still doing development, the MCP concept is still shifting, but it is very, very interesting. It allows people who may not be familiar with the FinOps dataset or concepts to get much faster access to the information they're looking for. LLMs are still quite bad at math or will mess up. And so that's why deep linking into the actual data source is very important, but we're also seeing improvements here as the models advance. And then the other interesting thing outside of FinOps generally is MCPs are allowing you to connect data sources across different MCPs. And so Youssef has a use case with Goose where You can turn on the Vantage plugin, you can turn on the Snowflake plugin, and the LLM can actually query a piece of business information from their Snowflake warehouse and combine it with a forecast or budget or just a set of cost data from Vantage. And so our general recommendation is just get folks familiar with these workflows, send them to LLMs first, and just begin experimenting. If you have any final questions or comments, you can find me at the Vantage booth or the team at the Vantage booth. And then Youssef said you can connect with him on LinkedIn, message him anything.
Come find me if you have any questions on Goose. I'm happy to share our learnings and experiences. Yeah, I think we're ready for questions. Yeah. Thank you.
Any questions? Yeah. Any questions for Brooke or Youssef? Brent?
So in terms of the text to SQL, are you guys bypassing any Gen AI? And is it just like Python machine learning SQL retrieval, and then you display the SQL that it came back with, plus like charts and graphs for rendering inside of the response? And is this delivered as like a Slack bot? Is that the deliverable?
Yeah, good question. So a little bit of context there is our API already supports you the ability to provide that filter. And so that's how today, even regardless of AI, folks can interact with the data sets they have within Vantage, and we'll return a response, whether it's a JSON response or there's another API where you can actually get a data dump into S3 or something similar. So the agent's doing the same thing. It's just then parsing through that JSON response and then understanding what the results are and then presenting it and summarizing it and presenting it to you. So in our MCP, we're teaching it how to construct that, what we call VQL. And then we're also giving it as much context as possible when you ask your first question. So we kind of dump in, like, here's all the tag keys that are available, here's all the providers. And we also give context about who you are based on your API key. So we can also throw in information like, here's what team you're on, here's what reports you have access to. And so it uses all of that context to try to generate the best answer.
And you mentioned visualizations and integration with Slack. The nice thing about MCPs is you can pretty much build an MCP for anything that has an API. So at Block, we have a Slack MCP that we're allowed to, read, write Slack messages and post in Slack. So you could easily create a Slack MCP that interacts with the Vantage MCP to send weekly reports based off of a predetermined recipe or workflow. So it really truly is the USB-C port of AI, LLMs, whatever you want to call it. It's super modular and extensible. So that's why we encourage folks to experiment, because you might come up with a lot of new and interesting use cases for your practice.
Based on your experience with the MCPs, what limitations you found, like providing tools to the MCP and the context that we have available with the general models? No, what did you touch the limit of context providing tools to the MCP, or no limit?
So I think the question is connecting the agent to the MCP itself and like challenges there. Is that fair? So we've tested internally with a bunch of different interfaces. So I use Cursor, so I've been testing with that. We've been testing Claude internally. And then Goose, I think, was the same, where you just give it a URL and it starts working right away. It's actually quite kind of like an aha moment. And because the protocol is defined, all of the agents themselves are now in MCP compatible. I think ChatGPT just launched their version of it as well. So that part is actually pretty seamless.
Did you have to do any training of your AI, or did it already know FinOps?
So that's that's kind of what this is trying to solve, where you don't have to do pre-training to get to this stage. And previously, it was attempted to be solved through RAGs or something similar. And so this is an improvement there. I think there's definitely work to be done. You can split the difference, right? And so with Goose, they can continue to provide more context about Block as a business and build that into their custom AI tooling. And then at Vantage, we can continue to give more context on the other side of it. But the goal of the whole protocol is to avoid having to pre-train your models, which can be very expensive, in order to start to answer these types of questions. What we can do on the MCP side is kind of an interesting code base where there's code, but then there's a lot of English language text, which is describing what's going on. And that's where you can continue to iterate and add more context and explain more what's going on to the agent.
And if you're using
the LLM, rather.
And if you're using Goose or Cursor, you can provide context. In Goose, we call it Goose hints, where I can say, something like our primary region is US West 2, our secondary region is US East 1. We generally don't like to use DynamoDB accelerator. So if you do see some DynamoDB accelerator costs, come up with some optimization opportunities for those or call out that cost. So you can begin to start to refine your stack with business-specific context that moves it from a generalized approach to a more company-specific approach.
Two questions. The first is kind of other than reading dashboards for people and interpreting them, intuitively, this is just so much better. I'd be curious, how do you measure success, and did this make you any more successful? That'd really be the key question.
That's a great question. So internally, we have a list of block-wide priorities, and one of our top priorities is improve platform efficiency dramatically. We're measuring that with a unit economic metric, cost to serve, but we're also measuring that with developer productivity. And so don't ask me what the secret sauce is, but we work pretty closely with our DX team to try to quantify hours saved with utilizing Goose and different MCPs. I'll be quite candid right now. A lot of my time with Goose and the MCPs is spent kind of coaching it to get the right answer and trying to figure out how to refine that so in the future it doesn't take me 10 minutes to get that answer, it takes 30 seconds to get that answer. So we're trying to measure productivity through developer hours saved. It's kind of an imperfect metric, but I would encourage folks when they're thinking about utilizing this, not just to think about a single metric, but think about a suite of metrics, similar to how we would think about FinOps metrics as a suite of metrics that accurately tells the story. So because it's so new, we're still trying to figure out what the right metric is, but right now we're indexing on developer productivity measured by hours saved, and then figuring out the rest as it comes through.
Yeah.
Squeeze 10% better?
We've measured that we've saved through Goose. It's not just for the Vantage MCP, but other MCPs that we have. We've saved hundreds of thousands of hours at Block since we implemented it in January. We have about 5,000 or 6,000 engineers. So if you think about that, 20 hours per engineer saved since January on average. That's kind of how we're thinking about it. So I mean, 20 hours a week, 20 hours, that's half a month, right? Yeah, it's worth it.
Hey everyone, producer Andrew here. Thank you so much for watching and for your support. For more FinOps X 2025 content, go check out our YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, and leave comments and questions for all of our wonderful speakers. We appreciate your support.